Are you enjoying your time on Earth right now? Oh wait, people are actually talking to me. Sorry. What's up, Comic Zone? With my exact armor. Yeah, it definitely wasn't me. Nah, it wasn't me who helped you. I'd love to take credit for that, but it wasn't me. Like game, set, and match. Where is his proof? Who, me? I can give you proof. I can give you archaeological evidence. I can give you anthropological evidence. I can show you the how and the why humans created God. What evidence do you have for your God existing though? Would you want to know, right? Let's start anywhere you would like. Well, yeah, I think humans invented religion too. Religion is like a secondary thing, though. It's like to me, religion is just codified culture, right, in the simplest form. Wait, should I go that way? Yeah, let's see what happens. But ideas of gods go back way, way, way before we had the idea of what we call religion today. Ideas of gods go back thousands and thousands of years ago. What makes you think we are gods? I don't think anyone built this universe, bro. Give me a good reason to think someone built this universe. Oof. Let's see what happens. Something's coming. Or not. What's up, Ben? Amen, brother. May God bless you too, brother. Oof. Come on. Damn parkour. Oh. I don't suppose Tarnish can swim. I don't think I understand what you're even saying, True One. It's a bit weird. What's that, blackout? Look, I don't know what all of this like mystic stuff is that you're saying, but I'll put it to you like this. My position is this. I'm an agnostic atheist. That means I'm atheist to the gods that have been presented to me so far, meaning I'm not convinced of their existence, therefore I don't believe in them. Where the agnosticism comes into it is that I'm open to the possibility of there being something unknown, meaning something I just haven't considered or haven't come across yet out there in the universe, potentially, right? Let's not give it any features, let's just consider it an unknown. But when I'm having this conversation about humans inventing God, I'm pretty convinced, based on the facts and evidence that I have available to me, that all known gods that come from the minds of humans are invented by humans. They're cultural inventions, right? So I would say all known gods are psychological constructs and do not exist independently of the mind. What's a psychological construct? Well, it's like a concept. It's something that exists only in your mind, right? There are abstract concepts that are like maths and logic, but these are universal abstract concepts and they're used to describe our physical reality. And wherever anybody picks up the idea of maths or logic, they will get the same result when using it. But there are other categories of abstract concepts like fictional characters, right? That is the category that a god would fit into until proven otherwise, okay? But yeah, so I'm not quite sure like what you guys are saying. It's a little bit confusing based on what I'm reading. No, it's not contradictory. I think you just don't understand what the words mean. That's why you might think that. So atheism is the disbelief in God or gods. Agnosticism is simply to say I have no knowledge of. Right? There is something I don't have knowledge of. I don't believe in ghosts or demons. That's childish. So you could be a Gnostic atheist, or you could be an agnostic atheist, or you could be agnostic about how the universe comes about. You could be Gnostic about how the universe comes about. So you just probably don't understand what that means. Yes, you can, right? Do you want me to get up a dictionary for you, who? Clearly don't know what these words mean. I'm not a part of a religion. I don't have any religious beliefs. Yeah, let's go for it, right? Read the second definition. I'll read it out to you, right? A person who has an uncertain or non-committal attitude towards something. Okay. So that can clearly combine with what the word atheist means. A person who disbelieves in God or gods. Okay. Agnosticism, or being agnostic, doesn't simply just pertain to talk of God. Right? Like I said, you could be agnostic to how the universe comes about. You could be agnostic to how shoes are made and cars are made. Right? It's just not having a notion or information about the said thing. Same thing, so put it this way. Agnostic atheism is what you might describe as soft atheism, without the jargon, right? So soft atheism is the position of, I don't believe what you're presenting to me, but I'm open to the possibility of something being there. Hard atheism is, I don't believe what you're presenting to me, and I know for a fact that this can never be, right? This is, say, when someone says, there is no God, there never will be a God, there cannot be a God. That's hard atheism. The central position, right, is disbelief in God or gods, okay? I'm not quite sure what you even mean by that, to be fair, McTime. That's kind of a wild comment. I'm not sure what you mean. Can you simplify it? Grok proved God exists. Grok's God is bloody Elon Musk at this point, bro. That is his God. Right. Man said Grok proved that he exists. That's a joke. But yeah, if you've got some evidence or proof that God actually does exist, or the God you believe in exists, I'd like to see it. If you've got a good convincing argument, I'd like to hear it, okay? But my position is all known gods are psychological constructs and do not exist independently of the mind, right? If you disagree, feel free to present some evidence to the contrary. But right now, we're about to run into this boss fight and get smashed to pieces for a while. Hey, what's that? Is that a one-use thing? How many uses do you get for that? Blessing of Marika. How many uses do you get for that? No, it's a single use. Yeah, I wouldn't waste that. That's crazy. It's a one use. Right, so anybody got any evidence, or what are we doing? Rhetoric and meta? People spinning their feelings all over the place in the chat. It's embarrassing for you. I don't think possessions are possible. I've seen no proof that demons actually exist or that possessions are possible. I find those to be what's called magical thinking, right? People who have very little understanding of scientific facts or about biology or psychology. They'd be easily convinced that, say someone's having an epileptic fit, they'd be convinced that it's a demon possessing them. Say a child is born with autism, they'd be convinced that it's a demon possessing them, right? So that's what I see when you say stuff like that to me. It sounds very silly. But you're more than welcome to think there's demons. Shit, what's his name? King James thought there was demons. He was obsessive. No, no. Like, what is this? Like, why are these bosses so tough? He didn't even touch me and he killed me. Well, hurt me a lot. Oh, he's too big. No. Look at that head. Oh, he's a porcupine as well. Okay, this is getting strange. This boss was clearly made from like a randomizer. What is this? I didn't even do any damage. Okay. Nice. No, he's gonna kill me. He's too big. What the hell was that? Got him. What the? Yes, Mimic. Excuse my language. Well, I did censor. No, right? There's no such thing as a demon, right? You're gonna need some serious proof to be able to say that there are demons. Or they're really just magical thinking, which goes back to one of the reasons we invented God in the first place. It's called hyperactive agency detection device. This is where people get ideas of demons and spirits and angels from as well. It's a built-in thing in our psychology as humans, right, to assign things that we detect have the agency. Sorry, we assign agency to things that we detect. Right? So it could be the wind rustling. It could be, lightning, thunder. It could be just say the wind rustling, a bush rustling because of wind. But ideas of ghosts and spirits and demons also come from this, in the same way that we invented gods using this. Sort of Wyramus. I still haven't really investigated this giant spaghetti monster thing. I hear it thrown about, but I've not really looked into it. But yes, humans invented God using what's called hyperactive agency detection device. They also invent the idea of ghosts and ghouls and spirits and such in the same way. It's just people trying to explain things they don't currently understand, which isn't surprising, because humans crave certainty. We crave knowledge. Oh, is my mic just gone quiet? Nah, it could be worse. That's something I was going to do. Skidoo tree. But yeah, I'm saying humans invented God. I think we've got substantial evidence to suggest that's the case. If you disagree, I want to hear your case against it, or maybe some proof you can point everyone to go and look at. Why should I believe God actually exists? It's on you to change my mind if you can. If you can. Change it if you can. What's up, Ignatius? Hey, nice Bible quote. What's that got to do with the topic, my friend? Why do you think God is everything? Are you like Christian? Are you a classical theist, or like a monotheist? Because God being everything more aligns with what's called pantheism than like monotheism. What's up, JT? I mean, I don't know. I could give you some ideas, but I don't think I know for certain. This is why I'd say I'd be agnostic to how the universe actually comes about. But I could point you to some things that science has to say. Also depends which type of Big Bang you're talking about. There are different models for it. JT, you're not another one of those guys that think atheists think everything comes from nothing. That's a religious belief. Religious people think everything comes from nothing. It's called ex nihilo. People outside of religion don't tend to think that, okay? That's a foundational religious belief. If you don't believe me, I'll put your silly belief on the screen. But me personally, I don't think something comes from nothing. But you do. So the minute you as a believer argue that something can't come from nothing, you're arguing against your own belief, which is a good step towards rational thinking. You got 7 hours? Bruh, you're a baby. There's people walking around with like 10,000 hours or thereabouts in this game. No, Quasar? Is it Quasar or Quasar trades? No, I don't believe in Gnosticism. I don't really know enough about it. Every time I've looked into it, it seems to be kind of weird. It's like something to do with a demiurge. But yes, atheists don't believe something comes from nothing. That's what theists tend to believe. They think God spoke everything into existence out of nothing. Okay? I don't think that. In fact, I don't think the concept of nothing is actually a thing. Nothing is the negation of something specific or a group of specific things. So there is no true nothingness. There's always something there. But theists don't think that. I'm a person. At least I think I'm a person. Right? I haven't got any religious beliefs at all. Yeah, so like I said, Zaman, it's not really my job to make claims about how the universe comes about. I don't know for certain, but I think science has some really good answers about that. If you're actually interested in like explanatory success versus creationist stories, you should look into it. But if you prefer creationist stories, then you probably don't care about the truth, right? But that's something new to think about. Nah, Alejandro, that's just like conspiracy theorist stuff, bro. Forget that guy. He's no creep. Guys, just gotta stop getting distracted by the government like that. Government just got you lot in the palm of their hands. Oh no, they're getting close to the truth. Release the files. This will keep them entertained for a decade or two. But yeah. What proof do I have? I think we have archaeological evidence of the artifacts that humans have produced pertaining to the gods they believe. We have anthropological evidence, meaning we know the names of the gods and the roles they played in the societies. We know the rituals, the religions, and the traditions surrounding the gods. But what we do not have, even in the Christian faiths or Abrahamic faiths, is empirical evidence of God being an independent entity. If you would like, I could show you some artifacts that pertain to the gods humans have created. We can walk down the names and the configurations of gods, meaning monotheism, polytheism, pantheism, panentheism, deism, dualism, animism, and we can show you a god from each culture that aligns with those. Okay, all of this being facts and information that supports my claim that humans invented God. Okay. I think you're out of your depth with that one, up to you, right? Atheism is the disbelief in God or gods. Right? You don't need to have empirical evidence for that. It's the person making the claim. I like how they don't teach theists about burden shifting. They don't realise what they're doing. It's you who needs to provide evidence of a God existing, not an atheist. Right? If I walk up to you and say, there's a pink elephant under my desk, you're well within your rights to say, I don't believe that's there, right? Until I show you the pink elephant under the desk. Right? That's the position you're in as a theist. You got to show us this pink elephant, e.g. God. TLS, I don't know enough about sleep paralysis, but I think it's something natural that happens with your body. Actually, you know what? Let's just find out exactly what it is. Right? I don't find it to be anything magical. Sleep paralysis is the temporary inability to move or speak that occurs when waking up or falling asleep, often accompanied by frightening hallucinations. It happens when the brain wakes from REM sleep. What is REM sleep? Oh, I didn't need a whole bloody web page for it. I guess I'll put it on the screen. REM sleep is like one of the states of sleep. You got like various brain states when you're sleeping. So nothing magical or mystical happening in REM sleep. Rapid eye movement is what REM sleep is. It's a unique active stage of sleep occurring roughly every 90 minutes, characterized by intense brain activity, vivid dreaming, and temporary muscle paralysis. So there you go, right? So I'll read again. What is sleep paralysis? Sleep paralysis is a temporary inability to move or speak that occurs when waking up or falling asleep, often accompanied by frightening hallucinations. It happens when the brain wakes from REM sleep, like we just said, random eye movement, but the body remains in a paralyzed state, designed to prevent acting out dreams. Episodes last seconds to minutes. They are generally harmless and often feel like conscious nightmares. Okay, that's what sleep paralysis is. So how are you measuring the Bible to be truth, right? What are your tools that you're using to determine what's a lie and what's the truth? What's up, maybe? What's up, David? I didn't see you there. Shalom. Yeah, I've heard various different types of the tag argument. You might have a unique one. If you want to give it, I'll listen or I'll read it. Yeah, that has nothing to do with anything, Optim, right? Do you have any proof of your God or not? Your critique is fine on a cultural level, I don't mind, but it has nothing to do with proving your position. It's not making your claim any more viable. Can you prove free will exists? How are you dying? Because I'm not playing properly. I just wasted all those points I picked up as well. Yeah, I'm not playing properly, but who cares? I'm more interested in speaking to you guys and playing the game anyways. I can always play the game when I go offline. What's up, Garrett? Yeah, the rules of logic are the law of identity, non-conformity, sorry, uh, non-contradiction, law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. Those are the laws of logic, classical logic. Tag isn't pre-sup. Bro's bracing for the punches already. He's like, bro's tensing up. Those jokes. Yeah, I was literally giving him the definition of what sleep paralysis is, bro. Me personally, I think there are various different configurations of gods, right, from different cultures across history. So when I use the word God, I use it as a category definer for supernatural entities or deities. Some cultures have God being 3-0, like omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent. Some gods don't, right? Some cultures have gods being creators, some don't, right? Some are what's considered big or capital G gods, some are what's considered small g gods. It all depends on which culture's configuration you're talking about. So me personally, being that I'm saying humans invented God, I don't give any one culture's idea of God's supremacy over the others or better treatment than the others. I treat them all categorically the same, even though they have different configurations. Yeah, Optim, you just don't get it, bro. You just don't get it. Interesting. Do you want to define why I would think that? Hi Basu, you got it, man. You won that one. You won that exchange. Do you believe these laws to be discovered or invented? I think that's a bad question, right? I think we'd come up with language to describe things. There are two types of laws in the world that we know about as humans. Those are prescribed laws, right, like litigation, how one ought act, and there are described laws, like the laws of nature, laws of physics, electromagnetism, etc. Logic is something that seems to appear fundamental to the universe, so some people like me would say logic itself is axiomatic, but we describe logic, right, through language. But yeah, that's why I'd say that's a weird question. Yeah, we had a whole conversation about this the other night, Hayabusa. It was kind of funny. But yeah, like there was a faction of us that said, yeah, humans invented God, and there was a faction that said, no, actually we didn't. All right, dogs, sorry, not God. So yeah, we had a whole conversation about this the other night. Technically, yes, we domesticated dogs and we ushered the evolutionary process, or the devolution of them from wolves. So yeah, we did selectively breed. So we had a hand in the invention of dogs in some way. No, I don't think that's... put it this way, right? If a God exists and it was possible to know it, then I would know it. It'd be part of my knowledge set, right? It'd be something I could have experiential data on it. Data for, right? I wouldn't have to believe in it. It would just be a fact of reality at that point. It'd be something I know. Do you know? What's up, call me. I don't think I'm smart, but I appreciate you. Thanks for the vote of confidence. He got me. These guys are tougher than they look. Ah, oh, nice little setup he done there. 2-man in me. Pause. Oh, I can't even get an attack in. There we go. Slight break. Jeez, you got me on the roll. Yeah, it was kind of saucy, innit? I didn't mean it in that way though. I didn't mean it in that way. Yeah, so again, I don't recognize that question as a serious question. I like cereal. I don't recognize that as a serious question. If I'm already pretty certain that humans invent God, the realm of belief would simply be to accept without proof. But if God were actually a thing that I could know, then I would know about God. I wouldn't need to believe in it. Bro, there are lots of problems with the tag argument, bro. Presupposition is one of those problems. Man, we've been smashed into the ground. Did I ever press the button? I did. So why do you choose to believe in your ancestors? You know, like, scientifically speaking, you are your ancestors. I don't know what version this is. We're in the DLC though, so it's probably updated. So, put it this way, right? The problem we're having here is that there are so many different concepts and ideas of God that, put it this way, like I said earlier on, God is an abstract concept, just like maths and logic is an abstract concept. But maths and logic shows up universally when anybody applies them. Doesn't matter what culture, what time, what region, right? Maths will always be maths. Logic will always be logic. But the problem is, God is also an abstract concept, but a different category. Therefore, whenever the idea of God comes up, it turns up different in absolutely every person's mind. Even if we say it still has the same fundamental nature, it clearly operates different for everybody that interacts with the idea, okay? So that's the problem. Yeah, I would say logic is something that's fundamental to the universe. In order for something to be this and not that, there must be what we describe as logic at play, okay? And to be fair with you, since logic is axiomatic, then it doesn't require a being to ground it. And if God behaves logically, then it's also axiomatic to God. So there's that. Maths is obviously something that we devise as a language. Yes, things have numerical value outside of the language. But as a language, we devise maths. Same thing with morality. There need not be a supernatural being or entity to ground morality, because it's a system or a group of systems that we call ethics that only matter when humans interact with humans and the earth. So logic out of the picture for God to ground, maths out of the picture for God to ground, morality out of the picture for God to ground. So God is not necessary to ground any of those things. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, it's true, meta, but there's no universal idea of God, right? This is why we have different conceptual configurations, right? Monotheism, polytheism, pantheism, deism, dualism, animism, panentheism, right? There is no universal idea of God consistently across history. In fact, what you call monotheism now doesn't even come around to the 6th century AD through Zoroastrianism. So there you go. It's quite late in human history. So the God of the Bible actually depends on henotheism and polytheism in order for him to become what he becomes. Yahweh becomes what he becomes by assimilating characteristics of El Elyon, which is a Canaanite god. No, some people define God as a creator. Like I just said, there are different concepts of gods. But yeah, if the God you're describing as a creator, then more power to you. But still, it's still very difficult to falsify that or even prove it. I don't know. I don't know if animism really makes sense. Animism, I can see why, like, not primitive, but like ancient humans would think animism is a thing. But them coming out of animism isn't that much different than like the idea of, I think it's Plato's forms. It's not that much different, because they're saying there's like each thing has an essence that doesn't exist in the thing. It exists higher than the thing. So it's kind of like, it's weird. It's weird. Okay. So me, when I use the word God in the English language, I'm using it as a category definer for deities or supernatural entities. Now, depending on which culture's idea or concept of God we're talking about, would define the attributes of that God. So if you're talking about like a classical monotheist kind of view or like a classical theist view, then you might say God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, creator God, right? But if you was talking about some other type of God, like a deistic God, then it wouldn't necessarily have those same attributes. Or if you was talking about a pantheistic God, it wouldn't necessarily have the same attributes. Or a panentheistic God, the attributes change depending on the concept of God you're describing, right? But yeah, it's up to you. Which God do you want to talk about, I say? Well, that is a part of the argument, Metawave, right? Someone has to devise a concept of God and impart it to you for you to have awareness of it, to, interact with it. Or you have to devise a concept of your God. You have to devise a concept of God yourself to have awareness of it and interact with it. So that is a part of it for sure, because it doesn't seem to exist as an independent entity, meaning all the ideas of gods that we know about require human minds to either acknowledge them or to conceptualize them completely. There's no evidence to suggest they're independent agents capable of having causal effect on our reality. That's the problem, right? That's why it's reasonable to say humans invent gods. I don't know what that is, bro. Is that a car? Well, I think, put it this way, I think it's important to open this conversation for various different reasons. On a cultural critique level, but also on an individual kind of how can I say, like an individual enrichment kind of level, right? What's called like engaging in dialectics, if that's the right way to pronounce it. Like offering up a thesis, getting an antithesis, and then getting a synthesis out of it, right? Just for that alone, it makes it worth it. But my point is, I think I'm capable of changing my mind given good information. So I'm asking, hey, is it possible that my conclusion is missing a part here? Have you got a piece of the puzzle that I haven't got? Therefore, that piece of the puzzle might change my mind, right? So it's worth engaging with. But maybe for you it's not. Another excuse to explain our existence. Yeah, true. Why do you? What do you think the reason we exist is? Because this is another one of those big giant questions, isn't it? You don't need to have grounding for logic. We just went over that, bro. That's the problem with Christian thinking. You don't need to have grounding for logic. It's axiomatic. It's self-justifying. You don't need to have grounding. Huh? Oh, I'm dead. Oh no, it's the wrong drink. Now I'm dead. I could have survived that too. Because it seems to be a fundamental part of our reality, right? In order for us to differentiate one thing or another, something that we describe like logic needs to exist. But I could be wrong, right? Again, I'm not a philosopher, so there's levels to it that I don't know. But that doesn't give you license to like jargon, if you want to. I don't know, Dav. I don't know personally. I don't know. I'd be dubious of anyone that tells you what happens after you die while you're alive. It's like blue hat. Yeah, that's kind of how I've intuited it, but could be wrong. Not necessarily. Again, anyway. So I don't want to get too lost faffing about. The main topic is the main topic, right? If you've got a pivot from a religious point of view to a philosophical point of view to argue for God, then what you're doing is engaging in a post hoc rationalization. It's not necessarily how the concept of God was devised in the first place or what it was devised for. Right? Philosophers come centuries after the idea of God. Right? But yeah, I don't want to get caught up in all this nonsense, with all due respect. I mean, I would say, right, everyone's entitled to, put it this way, testimonials come from people's personal private experiences, right? It's very difficult, if not impossible, to be able to verify exactly what someone experienced, what they saw, what they heard, right? But if you were to attempt it, it would look like trying to recreate the conditions necessary to experience what they report they experienced. And at the point where you couldn't recreate the conditions to experience what they report experiencing, you'd have to accept what they say without proof. So it'd be to believe, right? You'd be taking what they say, accepting what they say without proof. And that's the problem with personal testimonies. But personal testimonies also require like a lot of psychological scrutiny of the person that's giving you the story in the first place, right? Once you get past the scrutinizing the actual individual and you do the the scientific method, usually what you're left with, right, when it comes to these magical kinds of testimonials, is like there's no proof of it. So you have to either choose to accept or not accept, which is kind of the realm of religious belief in the first place. Those testimonials describe exactly what a divine revelation is in the first place, right? We can't prove he said he saw what he saw, he heard what he heard, but this is what he's reporting. Nah, probably not. Rationally, I don't think I have what it takes for the debate circuit, to be honest. I don't know enough. I don't know if I have the temperament for it either. So, like I said, I'm just using the word God in an English word, like in an English way, just like a vernacular kind of colloquial way, just to define a category of supernatural entities, right, or deities. But when we talk about a Christian God, then we define the Christian God. When we talk about the a Roman God, we define the Roman God, etc. But if you're like arguing from a philosophical kind of God, then we define it that way too. I don't know who that is, to be fair. Yeah, probably. I'd get schooled. It's all part of learning, isn't it? Yeah, like Kyle, that's kind of just preaching though, bro. You're not really adding anything to the conversation. Why should anyone think Jesus is anything more than a man, or that the Bible holds any like explicit truth at all pertaining to God? I don't know. What evidence? What evidence? As far as we understand, the Bible is a book of claims, not a book of evidence. So what evidence would there be? What's up, JL? I think we should stop using the word elites, right? They're just people with money. You should stop. If you like remove that pedestal psychologically, then you can address them as humans in the exact way that they are. What are the types of things humans do? Do they do the type of things humans do? Then they're just humans, bro. So it's quite possible a group of people can gather around in a circle and pray to Michael Jackson, but does that mean that action, that ritual, has any actual power? No. So I wouldn't take it any deeper than that. Nah, I disagree. That's just your belief. Viscount, no. That's an ex nihilo belief. Yeah, thanks for the meta, bro. But you're not really adding anything to the conversation either, G-Squad. Yeah, but me personally, I don't think something comes from nothing. That's never going to be my type of take. That's a Christian or an Abrahamic kind of take. To be fair, it's actually an ancient Sumerian take that's passed down through the Levant to you guys, Christians and Jews and Muslims. The creationist myth is way older than the Abrahamic faiths. Well, I'm not going to argue out of your own suicide, bro. If you want to do that, just keep it to yourself. So if religion's what's stopping you from taking your life, then stay religious, in simpler words. No, I wouldn't say they're describing anything accurately. I'd say that's your interpretation. Okay, it's like looking at data. Right? You can look at the data and see what it says explicitly, or you can interpret it through various different lenses. That's kind of what you're doing here. Right? in a kind of apophenia type of way. Yeah. But if you're pointing to these other cultures' ideas and their ideation, it would more look like mythology. So you would say, yeah, their mythology aligns with their mythology, aligns with my mythology. That seems to be the case. But then when we measure mythology to reality, do we find it lining up to be able to say this is true? No, we don't. This is the problem. Yeah, but my interpretation doesn't require a preconceived belief system. I'm actually looking at the data. No, it's not the same thing from. So put it this way, right? I can actually show you some tablets and stuff, right? So for instance, oh yeah, here's just for the guy who keeps saying about something coming from nothing, right? This is your belief. This is what you believe, right? Creatio ex nihilo, Latin for creation out of nothing, the foundational Christian doctrine that God created the universe, including all matter, energy, and time and space, from absolute nothingness, rather than shaping pre-existing material. Right? So that's not something that I believe. It's quite obviously something you believe. That being said, what was I going to show you? Right? So, for instance, like I know this may not pertain to the exact creationist myth, but I can't remember where that's found. But something like this, what you're seeing on your screen is the original story of Noah's Ark. It's a tablet like the size of your hand, right? It fits in your hand. You can go Google this for yourself. And this comes from the ancient Sumerians and Mesopotamians. It's very, very old. It's like maybe I want to say between 3,500 to 2,000 something BCE. Okay, maybe even older than that. But then there's also the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is apparently the oldest recorded type of like religious mythos, if you will. But them ancient Sumerians over there in the Levant area, or like modern day Iraq, they set the ball rolling with all of these mythological ideas that are passed down into what you look at today as Christianity. So if you see that, and you know that, you don't really take what the belief system has to say on this issue, because it doesn't have greater explanatory power than our current understanding of science, meaning actual measurements, actual experimentation, actual data collected. This is why, like, modern believers, put it this way, well, some believers choose to recognize now at this day and age we can't hold Genesis to be an actual account of how the world comes to be. We have to read it allegorically, metaphorically, because it doesn't align with what's found in reality. Okay? But yeah, the Genesis idea is way older than the Abrahamic faith itself, okay? I don't have any religious beliefs, bro. Yes. Who's saying the earth doesn't have a beginning? But it's like I said, right? Me personally, I don't make claims about how the universe comes about. I don't even make claims about how life comes about. But I will say science has really good answers to those things. And if I had to choose between a creationist myth, which is thousands of years old, versus current explanatory success in science, I'm taking current explanatory success, right? But you can choose to do what you want to do, right? So it's entirely up to you. This error is kicking my ass, bro. I've got to just speed run it. How do we explain other universes? I mean, I don't know if other universes have been proven to exist. I don't know if that's true. You might be like referencing multiverse or something like that, but I don't know if it's absolutely true. Something Mugiwara, a long time, bro. Yeah, so the Big Bang Theory has different models, though, doesn't it? So this is the thing. People don't. I'm not saying that you have to keep up to date with it, but there are different models for the Big Bang which have different implications for how the universe actually works. Not necessarily the truth about where it comes from, so I don't make claims about that. How it started, I don't make claims about that. But from what I do know, I think the Big Bang itself doesn't tell you T0, beginning of all things. It more describes a transformation from one form into another form, which explains other models of the universe in the first place. Yeah, so like I said, I don't hold any dogmatic beliefs about how the universe comes about, bro. I generally don't know, but science has some good answers, right? So how can I be certain about that? I don't even think, Side note, I don't think there's such thing as infallible knowledge in the first place. So I'm not sure. Earth definitely existed before humans, bro. If you go to the Natural History Museum in the UK, they walk you through the whole thing in like a massive, it's like a really cool kind of setup. They show you early Earth environment, the various phases that life goes through on Earth. You can go look at it for yourself. Still gymming? How you getting on, man? It's been a while since I streamed in the gym. Very long time. Yep, that's a fact, Greg. That's a fact. We aren't special, and yeah, that's a fact. Hard fact to swallow, but so it's definitely a fact, or at least it appears to be. That's a good point, Blue Hat. The moral argument is probably one of the worst. Yeah, I think you should. I think you should re-examine it, Zimnar. Right? You should look into it again. It doesn't tell you anything about T0. Right? It describes an expansion. Okay, that's what you might say is the beginning of our local universe, based on observations and calculations. Right? So it's inferred based off what we know now, but it's not. It's not. Put it this way: in an not to like pull you in different directions, but hopefully you can track different thoughts at the same time. But all measurements are actually just approximations, anyways. Okay. But what you call the Big Bang Theory is based on what's called cosmic microwave background radiation, I think. And them doing calculations about the expansion rate of the universe. I think. Could be wrong. I think. But that being said, even with those calculations and the observational data, there are still other models like the ekpyrotic model of the universe. What most people hear about is what's called the singularity. Right, so like everything just starting like that. That's not believed to be a thing anymore currently, as far as I know. Could be wrong, right? But it's more likely that there's a system of big bounces and big crunches than everything just appearing at one point from nothing, right? And anyways, like, my verbiage is bad. I don't think it appeared from nothing anyway, so. No, that's just a Kalam kind of boggling, right? The whole cause thing is cause and effect, also not a law of the universe, so it's just it's just Filbo ramblings, to be honest with you. It's not necessarily what cosmology or astrophysics or physics itself says. It's just outside of observations and arguments. I think I don't know, right? That's what I said. I've said it 100 times. I'm not certain. I have no certainty over how the universe comes to be. But like I said, if I had to pick between a current explanatory success versus a creationist story, I'm taking explanatory success. It really doesn't matter. Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, it's Friday night. What are you guys doing cooped up on the internet, talking to a random guy like me? I think I'm going to have some pizza soon. It's probably been longer than 6 months. I don't think I've seen you in maybe a year or two, Mugawara. It's diabolical as game. What pizza? It's like a flatbread thing. So it's called like Spanish chorizo or something like that. But now I just put extra stuff on it to like, because it's so thin, it just turns into a cracker once you actually cook it. It has very minimal sauce. I just put stuff on top of it, so it becomes like, I don't know, just a cool little eater. Saturday morning. Oh yeah, you're in Australia, right? Yeah, kind of like your own pizza. So if I could, right, I'd combine like a veggie supreme with a meat feast, and that would be the best pizza. Right? All the extra vegetables and all the meats. I mean, if that's what you got from what I said, G Squat is totally fine, but that still has nothing to do with whether your God exists or not. I'm pretty certain humans invented the God that you're talking about. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that, and there's no evidence to suggest it exists as an independent entity. But again, people have made me quite aware that some people aren't able to hear what you're saying. They have to turn it into something else that they can understand. So I'm dealing with that too. But if that's what you're taking, fine. One with everything. Well, I don't know if it'd be enlightened when it starts to come out the other end of you. But that's the kind of pizza I'd like. Except from like, I don't really F with stuffed crust either. Stuffed crust is pretty nasty. It's pretty nasty last time I tried it. No, I wouldn't. Wise, right? I would never be associated with the institution that is described as Christianity or any of the Abrahamic institutions. What they've been involved with historically is far too vile to ever associate with them. Even if I decided to believe in the Abrahamic God again, I would never be associated with any of the organisations. They've done too much terrible stuff. But that's my opinion. You don't have to take that. What's up, Zerly? But, well, if the smartest person in the world was to pop out tomorrow and be an atheist, would you become an atheist? Game is Elden Ring, bro. Yeah, remember, Christ wasn't a Christian, bro, so think about that. Gospel music is great. Gospel music is so good because of African culture mixing with African and African American culture mixing with Christianity. That's why gospel music is so great. But if you listen to like Roman Catholic gospel music, it's trash. Like Gregorian chants, crap, trash. But when black people do gospel music, excellent. But it's because of slavery and then mixing in their culture into the Christianity, which is why you got a hybrid type of praise that comes from black American churches. But yeah, gospel music is great. I still listen to gospel music, but I'm not taking ideologies with me. Yeah, some of the most talented musicians in the world could be found in like black churches. But the problem is with that as well, they are quite ideologically restricted. So a lot of them end up like abused in various different ways in the church. This is why they made movies like Fighting Temptation, Sister Act, etc. It's kind of the standard issue in churches, this whole battle against secularism and music. Why the hell are you so good at music if Satan's the god of music? Makes you wonder. But these are the internal contradictions that they got to deal with, not me. I'll just take the music when they release it. No, that doesn't show I'm not looking for truth. It just shows that I've read a history book. It shows I've looked into Christendom, the Roman Empire, what's it called? The Protestant Reformation. It just shows that I know some history. The Papal Bull, the Doctrine of Discovery, right? Slavery. It just shows that I know history. But yeah, if you don't care, then you don't care. Right? It's your business, but I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so to the main question, no, I wouldn't join. Even if I was to decide to believe in Abrahamic God again, I wouldn't ever associate with any of those beliefs, any of those religions. Yeah, your analogy doesn't follow, bro. We're talking about an institution, okay? Put it this way, some people are like, no, you don't judge the religion by the followers. Wrong. You judge the religion by the followers because they enact the ideology embedded in the religion, okay? So if you see what they've done historically, then you know this is what that religion produces. This is the fruit that tree produces, and it's not good, okay? But you can try and compartmentalize that to stay within your grouping if you want. But you could also read a history book. Just saying. What are you talking about, Dickie, bro? Oh, you saw that that TikTok I reposted, didn't it? With the Normans beginning taxation. That was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, but like I just said, Jesus wasn't a Christian either, so there you go. Something to think about. What makes you think that, Willie? Doesn't matter, alright? It really doesn't matter. you're like doing a no true Scotsman fallacy. You're saying no, they're not real Christians. What, you're more Christian than the Pope? Get the hell out of here, bro. You're more Christian than the last 20 to 30 popes if it's been that many. No, so how can you tell me that I'm wrong for taking that perspective based on what's been historically done by Christians, right? Both Catholics and Protestants. So no, same thing with Islam, same thing with Judaism. Okay, like I said, the question you asked was if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? No, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to be associated with the institution. That's what I said. That's why I said everything I just said in the last 5 or 6 minutes. Well, yeah, everyone is entitled to their opinion. No one's telling you can't have your opinion. But the church actually did do that for a large part of history. They didn't allow people to have their opinions. They unalived a lot of people because they didn't ideologically assimilate. So the church is very, very wicked historically. Very wicked indeed. Yes, you tried to say they're not real Christians because they don't follow the teaching of Jesus, right? And I said poppycock. You're not more Christian than the Pope, and if the Pope was okay with it, then why aren't you, right? Are you saying you're more Christian than the Pope? Got myself chomped. You can try and overlook all the atrocities and say, "Oh, just be like Jesus," but they were trying to be like Jesus too, right? From the Jesuits to whoever, they were all trying to be like Jesus too, but they still did what they did historically. Okay, so it's not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just attacking Christianity. I'm just saying in general. You asked me, would I become a Christian? And I said no. This is why historically the Institute of Christianity has been involved in too much atrocities, and it still continues to perpetuate atrocities, right, in many different ways. But it's not just Christianity, right? It's all of the Abrahamic faiths and some other religions too. Okay, people's beliefs and their ideologies make them do things that are permissible within that framework. When outside that framework, you can be an onlooker and say that is evil, that is unrighteous. But within that framework, it's permissible. Okay, that's why I wouldn't join. Bro, if you accurately emulated Jesus, you'd be hung probably by fellow Christians, right? Did you actually read the guy's story? It's like, no, like you would be ideologically opposed to the church itself, right? You, as an institution, you would be killed if you were to act like Jesus. Okay, so you don't get, okay. You don't get where you stand in history, right? That's the problem. No, it's not your point, right? That's the problem. Yeah, lots of scientific suppression, right? What was I reading? I think there was this philosopher called Berkeley. I think he was Scottish, and basically, right, he capitulated or he appealed to the desires of the churchmen, right? So he worked in a lot of their ideas. Actually, he wrote a very interesting book. I was looking at some of it. It's like it's a polemic against free thinkers. But anyways, right? He did all of this so he could get the benefits of the church, and they made him a bishop, bro. But he knew better, right? But he used the institution to garner power. Same thing with a lot of other great thinkers. Like they suppressed the knowledge they had scientifically, philosophically, in order to capitulate to the church because of Christendom and the power that the church wielded in Europe. Okay, historically, they're not the good guys, right? Whether Jesus existed or not, what come out of all of the different various groups pertaining to Christianity has not been a good thing, right? The good things you can do with Christianity, you can do outside of Christianity. You know, like love thy neighbor, be charitable, you know, do good, heal people if you can. All of those things can be done outside of Christianity, whereas the bad things ideologically are unique to the religions themselves. I think it was. I'm gonna give you the. Where is this guy? George Berkeley. Asifron. Right, I think this is a defense of Christian religion against so-called free thinkers. Right, you should read a bit of it. It's ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. Like he knew what he was doing. Right, he was like, let me gas up the church so I could get more power. And this is what people have been doing for like hundreds of years. Right, so. I don't know, Andre, to be fair, or Andrea, I think it is. I don't know. Right? I think what you're describing. I think if I read that correctly, put it this way, right? If humans invented God, then it makes sense humans would give God anthropomorphic features, meaning human features. It can love, it can get angry, it can express regret, remorse, etc. So if that's the same kind of God that's described in the Bible, then it would make sense, right? That it's a human invention, or at the minimums, like in a charitable way, a human interpretation of the God. But whether a God can actually exist in that same capacity, who's to say, right? It seems very difficult to know. Bloody hell, this place is crazy. I ain't got up the stairs yet. I'm not sure I understand what you mean, unhearded. This game's not going anywhere, is it? Well, actually, historically, a lot of people are dubious about this character Jesus anyways, right? I put it like this, right? Knowing what we know about history, there's far too much incentive behind forging historical evidence for the character of Jesus. But if I was being charitable, I could give you a guy called Yeshua, a Bronze Age, or I don't know if it's Bronze Age, but let's just call him an apocalyptic Judaic priest who may have studied under John the Baptist, and who may have had disciples, right? You could give that person, like, being charitable, but even some historians would say actually that guy didn't exist either. But if I'm being charitable, I'd give you Yeshua, and I'd say Yeshua as an actual human does not align with the stories told about Yeshua in the Bible, the New Testament. Okay, there's no evidence of the divine birth outside of the Bible, no evidence of the miracles outside of the Bible, no evidence of the reincarnation outside of the Bible. But if you go and actually look at it, the miracles, the resurrection, the divine birth are all from other mythos happening around the time and prior to the time. So so this is a theory, right? You don't have to take this to be a fact, but you can look into it for yourself. If a Judaic priest called Yeshua actually existed, right, he would have been like an ideologue, I think that's what they call it. Like he would just been a rebel to both Hebrews and the Greeks and the Romans, essentially, right? He would have just gone around fucking shit up ideologically. But he would also have been a little chicken little, saying the world's gonna end kind of shit, which is the apocalyptic preacher part, okay? But that being said, if his disciples thought he was actually the Messiah that's predicted in the Torah, they would have been upset about the fact that he died and stayed dead, and then they would have took his story and turned it into something larger than life after the fact, where you get the character Jesus, and then that character Jesus gets buttressed by various church fathers, and then Augustine of Hippo, and then other ideas and influential people along the way. Okay, so then Jesus becomes this larger than life character. But is that Jesus in the New Testament exactly the same person as Yeshua? Probably not, right? The New Testament was designed to be like a bridge between the Hebrew culture and the Greek culture. So there's lots of mythos and nonsense tied in there. But the new, as I understand it, I'm just speaking about shit I've looked at so far. I could be wrong, right? So don't take this as a fact. But the New Testament was designed to match up historically, to actually be a historical account, whereas the Old Testament was not. The Old Testament had more to do with the identity building of Israelites, right, or Jewish people, or Hebrews. Okay, but when they decided that, you know, we're going to take all of these mythos, all these little cults running around talking about this Christ figure, what are they saying over there? What are they saying over there? What are they saying over here? Right, let's take all these accounts and let's mush it into one thing called the New Testament. Okay, but that being said, right, there isn't evidence of Jesus doing anything magical or being born magical or resurrecting magically outside of the Bible. And those events of the magic birth, the miracles, and the resurrection are found in other mythos: Horus, Dionysus, Mithras, Ganesha, Krishna, Buddha, Serapis. Okay, almost all of the magical shit is from other places or other ideas. Okay, so do with that what you will. But me personally, I think there's far too much incentive to forge a historical character like Jesus actually existing in the capacity he's reported to have existed in. But I think I'm just talking way too much, so I'm probably just going to end the stream. Anybody got any interesting questions before I do that? So what year was that, Michael? What year did they translate the Greek and Hebrew? What year was it? Into the Greek language. Yeah, so G Squat, you're just telling me about your beliefs, right? What did we say earlier on about people's personal testimonies? Why should I take your personal testimony to inform me about our shared reality? What if G Squat was telling me, oh, last week I actually got abducted by aliens, they took me up above the planet and they gave me all the secrets of the universe and then they dropped me back at the shops and everything was fine. That's your personal testimony. Do I take that to be a fact about how reality works? If I can't recreate the conditions necessary to experience what you experience, I can't intersubjectively verify the memories you have, then all I'm left with is to believe what you're saying and take it without proof. And I would never do that. Hey, thanks for that gift, Aston. Appreciate it, bro. Evan, do you really believe that? You know that story is older than the Bible, right? But people are entitled to their beliefs, as they say. Freedom of religion, right? There's also freedom from religion. But anyways, yeah, I'm yapping too much, and I think I want to try some pizza and play some games privately. Probably play some Metal Gear Solid. But if you guys are interested in the conversation that we've been having so far, feel free to drop me a follow and a subscribe, and maybe catch me on another stream when someone has a really good argument that we can actually get into. I mean, I'd put it this way, Meta, I don't know what you mean by as a consciousness. I don't know what you mean by that, but I would definitely think we're still evolving in many ways. I think probably the next level of human evolution is going to be transhumanism in some way. Thanks for that, Nexus, right? Do you have anything to add to the conversation now? And that's the truth, and I'm sticking to it. No, that's your personal story. It's what people tend to do. They tend to make up things because the reality is too hard to engage with. But if you actually have anything to add before I skedaddle, you're more than welcome. Yeah, so personally, I don't want to get too deep into like Bible talk, man. I'm not a religious text type of guy. I really don't care. Look at these guys coping on YouTube. G Squat and Nexus, I hope to see you on the next stream, right? I'm gonna give you some medicine. We're gonna give you some medicine to help you get better. You're not well right now. We're gonna help you get better. Should chat, but we've gone through that before though, Blue Hat. We've gone through that, like, and we've demonstrated like the first Samuel thing. Like, we've gone through that. The moral argument is like one of the worst possible arguments they can make, because it's easier to actually argue that religious people are immoral than them having any morality at all. Like they not all, but like the average Muslim or Christian or Jewish person, they lack understanding of ethics at all, right? So they're slave to the Euthyphros dilemma, to the divine command theory, right? They don't understand ethics or morality at all, so which leads them to really be considered immoral in most judgeable actions. But they always want to point the finger about morality, but still don't really understand it. Right? Why would people create something called moral philosophy, meta ethics, virtue ethics, normative ethics, consequentialism, utilitarian. Like, why would all these hundreds of years of studying go into this topic just for you to say, well, this is right because God says it's right? Blood, God doesn't even know what's right. Look what he does in the Bible. It's like, what are you talking about, right? Anyways, alright. Evan, right? Drop me a follow. We can talk about it on the next stream. Nah, that's wild, Blue Hat. That's wild. But that does align with Catholic ideology, right? Think about how much work they put into... Shit, this like random anecdote, right? I was reading this book and he's talking about the Bush years in America. They had this massive campaign about abstinence, and it was basically trying to convince kids that it's better to not have sex at all instead of using condoms. But this same kind of Catholic ideology was what was happening in the missionaries in Africa. So they were just fucking up tons and tons and tons of people. But it gets deep. But that, what you just said there, that girl said, Blue Hat, it aligns with the ideology. But anyways, I'm going. I want to get some pizza. I want to have a munch. But drop me a follow. I might sneak back on later tonight. Who's to say? But yeah, just think for yourself. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe and follow, and I'll be back another time. We can talk about this in depth. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.